Enjoy the pizza, Tyler smirked like he just landed a deal with NASA and not fired a woman older than his entire resume. That's what he said, in front of the team. After 12 years of me showing up early, staying late, and keeping their duct-taped backend from imploding during every Black Friday rollout, Tyler, CEO's fresh from MBA nephew with hair gel more expensive than his logic, waltzed in and said, "Team optimization." He actually threw a pizza party to announce layoffs. The man bought 3 large pepperoni pies from a place with a health rating so low it might qualify for Medicaid, then slapped them on the breakroom table like it was some kind of severance casserole. "Let's keep morale high," he chirped like we were the ones with morale issues. 2 slices in, he starts reading names from a list. Mine was last. "Lisa R., your role has been evaluated out. Grab a slice, it's all good vibes today." I didn't cry, didn't throw the Coke I was holding, didn't even flinch. I stood, nodded once, picked up the termination folder like it was a parking ticket, and walked out slowly with one greasy slice of pepperoni in my hand. That's the image they'll remember. Lisa with the pizza, not Lisa with the database keys. Not Lisa who rebuilt their entire reporting infrastructure after that 2020 meltdown. Nope, just Lisa and pizza. Now hey, if you're still listening, quick thing before we get deeper. 90% of folks hear stories like this and forget to hit that subscribe or like button. I get it, we're all busy, maybe munching our own emotional pizza right now. But when you hit like, it tells the team, hey, this revenge buffet, keep it coming. So go on, click it. It's free, unlike breach remediation. Anyway, back to Tyler's MBA massacre. The kid strutted back to his office like a peacock in Dockers, while everyone else just sat stunned, chewing crusts and wondering who'd be next. I passed Janet near the printer. Her eyes were glossy. She whispered, "He can't fire you." I just shrugged. I wasn't shocked. I was awake. See, numbness is a funny thing. It's quiet, deceiving. People think you're okay. But really, you're processing everything at 1,000 frames per second. His smirk, the silence, the timing. Conveniently, while his dad, the real CEO, was away in the Cayman Islands decompressing. Tyler thought he was a disruptor. Thought he'd clean house and the code would keep humming like a happy Roomba. But I knew better. I built the damn Roomba, and I knew exactly where the kill switch lived. The truth, the second I saw my name on that folder, I remembered something most people forgot even existed: my original contract. Signed 12 years ago, back when the company was still in a garage space next to a vape shop. Back when the founder, Tyler's dad, actually listened. I was the first engineer. I wrote the architecture that held this Franken software together. And I negotiated one little clause, one sentence buried in 6 pages of legalese no one thought would ever matter. If I'm terminated without cause, I retain license to the code I created. Yeah, license. Not copyright, not equity. License. Which meant they could keep using it if they paid for it. If not, well, then things would get very dark very fast. I got home, took off my badge, and poured a glass of cab. Sat down on the couch with the termination letter in one hand and a crumpled copy of my contract in the other. I read it again. That clause was still there, untouched, and now enforceable. Tyler didn't revoke my dignity. He handed me leverage, gift-wrapped in arrogance and mozzarella. It's funny how power doesn't always look like yelling. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the woman walking out with pizza while the servers hum along for the last time. I texted my lawyer 2 words, activate clause. Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and finished the wine. Tyler thought Friday ended with a win. But Monday was mine. The wine was cheap, but the clause was priceless. I was sitting on my cracked leather couch, same one I'd had since the Obama years, with my feet up on an ottoman held together by duct tape and a dream, flipping through the yellowing pages of my original employment contract. The edges curled like they were trying to hide the truth. But there it was, page 4, paragraph 11, subsection C, in bold. In the event of termination without cause, the employee retains a perpetual, non-exclusive commercial license to all code, frameworks, and proprietary systems authored solely by the employee during their tenure. God bless the poor bastard who copy-pasted that from a boilerplate doc back in 2011 and never thought twice. Back then, we were 4 people working out of a co-working space that smelled like weed and microwave tuna. I'd just come off a fat offer from a Fortune 500, and Tyler's dad, Greg, was desperate. His startup had zero brand recognition, a wobbly pitch deck, and servers that crashed every time someone sneezed. But Greg had charm. He promised me freedom, said, "Help me build it and you'll always have a stake in it." I didn't ask for equity, I asked for leverage. I remember our exact conversation over burnt coffee and a folding table. He said, "You want licensing rights?" "What for?" I said, "So if this place ever forgets why it runs, I can remind it." He laughed, signed, never brought it up again. 12 years later, that coffee-stained clause was my ace. Tyler didn't read it. Legal didn't flag it. HR didn't understand it, but I did. Because I wrote every damn line of the back-end architecture with my own 2 hands, in Red Bull-fueled marathons while their rockstar hires were still learning what a recursive function was. And here's the part that'll really bake your noodle, that core code, still running, still untouched. Every add-on, every integration, every flashy update Tyler's frat bro devs stacked on top. still plugged into my foundation like a toddler duct taping glitter onto an engine block. They never rewrote it. They just built a castle on sand and prayed it wouldn't rain. I sipped my wine, took a deep breath, and for the first time in 48 hours, I smiled. It was a strange, cold smile. The kind you give to a chessboard before your opponent realizes their queen's been boxed in since move 7. I pulled out my old ThinkPad, logged into my private repository. Yes, I kept the receipts and confirmed what I already knew. The license was clean, timestamped, and logged. I own the digital skeleton of their flagship product. Not just the code, but the dependencies, the configs, the update paths. All under my license. All hooked to an authentication node maintained through a third-party registrar under my LLC. And oh, did I mention I'd formed that LLC 3 years ago, just in case? I called it Phoenix Layer Systems. At the time, it felt poetic. Now, it felt surgical. I drafted a single sentence to my attorney, let's test the clause. He responded within 2 minutes, is this the clause? I replied with the PDF and a smiley face. Sometimes you don't need exclamation points. You just need proof and a little righteous silence. While the office devs were probably knee-deep in post-pizza regret and broken Jenkins jobs, I was preparing the legal equivalent of pulling the plug on their life support. Not malicious, not dramatic, just compliant. I opened the licensing dashboard tied to the registrar, saw the live list of credentialed instances running my codebase across all active environments. The system was still purring along. But now, every heartbeat passed through my gate. The moment that cease and desist hit their inbox, those gates would shut like a bear trap. No drama, no boom, just timeout errors and internal Slack panic. I stared at the clause one more time, ran my finger under the words like a bedtime story. It was beautiful, not flashy, not angry, just true, like the fine print in a fable nobody ever finishes. Then I leaned back, wine glass in hand, and looked at the ceiling. They thought they fired a coder. Forgot I was the infrastructure. First, it was the dashboards, those pretty little charts they loved flashing in investor decks. Gone, just spinning wheels and timeout errors. Then came the cron jobs, daily data dumps that kept the customer reports humming. Stuck, not failed, just pending, like a ghost was whispering, not today. Within 48 hours, the place that once ran on autopilot turned into a digital haunted house. Nothing exploded, nothing screamed. It just stopped working. Quietly, like someone had snipped the nerves but left the skin intact. Tyler, in his usual button-down swagger, kicked off Monday's stand-up by barking about alignment and throughput visibility. I imagine his mouth still tasted like gas station coffee and blind confidence. DevOps is asleep at the wheel, he said. Nobody responded, because by then, half the junior devs were already elbow-deep in stacked traces that made no damn sense. Jenkins pipelines hanging on simple dependencies. Build agents freezing mid-compile. Reporting modules throwing license-related exceptions they didn't even recognize. They rebooted the servers, twice. They cleared caches, reinstalled packages, wiped temp folders. Nothing changed. Meanwhile, the air in the office shifted. You know that weird silence when something important breaks, but no one wants to say it first? That was Tuesday. Tyler called an emergency all-tech Zoom and spent 30 minutes yelling buzzwords like they were spells. We need velocity. I want daily deploys back online. Where's the bottleneck? Some poor dev whispered, it's not a deploy issue, it's the core license handshake. It's not authenticating anymore. Tyler blinked like a deer hearing the word taxes. What license? That's when IT stepped in. Greg, the only ops guy who'd been there more than 3 years, dropped a screen share of the server logs. Every authentication ping to the codebase is being rejected. Not denied, just null. The license hash isn't validating. It started Sunday night, then override it, Tyler snapped. Greg just stared, it's not ours to override, and boom, there it was. The flicker. That moment when Tyler's mouth kept moving, but his eyes finally stopped glowing with unearned confidence. Like the lights were still on, but the ego had left the building. Who's managing the licensing backend? He asked. Greg's voice dropped an octave. Used to be under Lisa's scope. That node was hosted offsite, registered under a third party. Now it's here. He pasted a link into chat. Everyone clicked. Phoenix Layer Systems LLC, registered agent, Lisa R. Tyler's jaw actually twitched, like he bit into something spicy and couldn't tell if it was poison or pride. Send a reset request, he said. Greg raised an eyebrow. We did. Got a reply? It's a cease and desist. Legals looped in now. Cue the Slack explosion. At least 4 engineers went radio silent mid-thread. One messaged privately, holy shit. Did she own the license? Another replied she was the license. You could practically hear the panic seeping in through the keyboards. The system wasn't down. It was waiting. And the only person who knew what it was waiting for was the woman Tyler fired over a lukewarm slice of pepperoni. He spent the next 2 hours locked in a conference room with legal, pacing in circles, demanding answers that didn't exist. He wanted a backdoor, a failsafe, a patch, but there were none, because Lisa didn't just build the system. She was the system, and now her silence was echoing louder than his shouting ever could. By Wednesday morning, the client started calling. Not one or two, not the usual squeaky nonprofits who can't find their export buttons. We're talking the whales, enterprise contracts with six-figure annuals, the ones Greg used to call oxygen accounts because if they left, the company would suffocate. We can't access our analytics dashboard. The reporting export tool times out. Is this data loss? We're about to run quarterly audits. Support tickets multiplied like rats in a flooded basement. The Zendesk queue went from green to orange to screaming red. Interns in headsets were asking how to spell catastrophic. Sales tried to run interference. They told clients it was scheduled maintenance and that improvements were on the way. They parroted Tyler's script like good little soldiers, not realizing the building was already on fire. They were just mistaking the smoke for ambience. Tyler, meanwhile, held a Slack huddle with his technical response team, which mostly consisted of him, two stressed junior PMs, and a guy named Brent who once built a WordPress site for his cousin's dog rescue and now called himself a systems strategist. Look, Tyler said, pacing like a TED talk reject, we just need to reassure them. Language is key. Tell them it's performance tuning, or I don't know, security enhancement. Greg muttered, you mean like how Lisa used to do actual security enhancements instead of whatever this is? Tyler shot him a look. Don't need Lisa, we need solutions. The room fell into that specific kind of silence where nobody says what they're thinking. You needed Lisa 2 weeks ago, bro. Meanwhile, my LinkedIn was suddenly very active, not the public feed. The back door. DMs from folks I'd worked with for years, sales reps, client liaisons, even that weird finance guy who always brought egg salad to the company potlucks. One of them, Miranda from sales, sent me a message that just said, Lisa, is this you? I read it twice. Thought about replying with something sassy. Instead, I sent a single smiley face. No words, no threats, just the kind of emoji that says, oh honey, you have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes. Back at the office, Tyler tried to stem the bleeding with a town hall. He wore his best blazer, stood in front of a flat screen displaying a looping slideshow of company milestones, and said things like we're streamlining legacy dependencies, and this transition is a growth opportunity. Half the dev team was texting under the table. One engineer, I heard later, accidentally airdropped a screenshot of the cease and desist letter to the whole room. Tyler's face went white. Clients kept calling. Some of them weren't even mad, they were worried. Because without access to the reporting dashboards, they couldn't monitor compliance, couldn't run forecasts, couldn't submit to regulators. One CFO from a major account reportedly said this isn't downtime. This is breach territory. Tyler tried bluffing again. Tell them it's isolated, but it wasn't, because what they didn't understand and what Lisa never bothered to say out loud was that the code wasn't down. It was paused, held, waiting. On a leash she never dropped, and the more they tugged, the more obvious it became. Lisa had them by the architecture. Back in my home office, I sipped coffee from my I Void Warranties mug and watched their job listings spike on LinkedIn. Senior Backend Architect, Urgent Legacy Infrastructure Consultant, Immediate Need License Compliance Analyst, Temp. They were hiring band-aids for a system bleeding from its spine. And I was the only one holding the tourniquet. By Thursday morning, legal had that look, tight shoulders, unblinking eyes, and enough coffee cups to declare caffeine bankruptcy. Tyler stormed into their glass fishbowl like a Wall Street tantrum with a Slack addiction and barked, just cancel it. Override her clause, I don't care how, just fix it. Janine from legal didn't blink. Just slid a single sheet of paper across the conference table. It was my contract. Clause 11, paragraph C highlighted. Underneath, in red Sharpie, someone probably used out of pure spite, binding. Non-transferable. Signed by G. Madsen, CEO. Tyler read it 3 times, lips moving like a kid with a spelling bee trauma. What the hell does license rights even mean in this context? He snapped. Janine sighed. It means she didn't just work on the code. She owns usage rights. The foundational backend is licensed to the company under terms tied directly to her employment status, which you terminated. He paced like a man who just found out his parachute was sewn by interns. There has to be a loophole. What if we say it was with cause? She's got 12 years of clean reviews. All signed, all archived, no disciplinary action. You sent her off with a pizza party, not a pink slip. Someone else from legal added, also, it was your idea to skip the exit interview. We have no rebuttal statement, just a recorded Zoom of you saying good vibes only. Tyler turned purple. That's when the email hit. Subject line, formal notice of infringement Phoenix Layer Systems from Rhodes and Calhoun LLP to Tyler Madsen, CEO interim. CC Board of Directors. Attachment, Cease and Desist License Violation LR 2025. PDF. The room fell into a stillness that felt surgical. Janine clicked it open. Effective immediately, Phoenix Layer Systems, LLC, acting as the lawful license holder of proprietary backend codebase assets, is issuing a formal cease and desist order against all usage of said code, environments, and derivative architectures by company name, in accordance with Clause 11C of the original employment contract. Tyler stopped listening somewhere around lawful license holder. Phoenix Layer? What the hell is that? Janine didn't even try to hide the smirk. Her LLC, formed 3 years ago, fully registered, operates as a third-party vendor under software licensing law. She set this up years before you ever touched that corner office. Another lawyer chimed in. She never stopped preparing for this. You thought she was just quiet. Turns out she was documenting. Tyler shoved the laptop away like it burned him. Call her, he snapped. She has legal representation. All comms go through counsel now. I'm not paying her, Tyler growled. She stole our code. No, Janine said, slowly and with audible pity. She licensed you the code, and you voided that license the minute you fired her without cause. But she built it here. She built it. She owns it. You rented it. The silence was deafening. Back in my apartment, I had both feet up and my inbox open. My lawyer had CC'd me on the delivery confirmation, and the read receipt came back from legal's server in under a minute. Tyler's name was listed as opened 9:18 a.m. I'd been playing the long game for years. Building, not just systems but structures, legal, technical, procedural. All of it layered and clean, nothing malicious, just precise. I didn't take anything. I simply withdrew permission, and it was glorious. The moment they read that cease and desist, their entire infrastructure moved from inconvenience to infringement. Every line of code running through production was now a potential lawsuit on legs. Every investor call now had to answer one inconvenient question. Why is your platform held hostage by someone you fired over pizza? And here's the kicker no one saw coming. I'd priced the license fee exactly at 8x my unpaid bonus. $640,000. Not because I needed the money, because I wanted the number to sting. They robbed me of $80K and a shred of dignity. Now I was selling it back with interest, silence, and a paper trail they couldn't escape. It started with a single message on a private channel in a niche Slack group for SA infrastructure pros. The kind of digital watering hole where DevOps people complain about burnout, share Docker memes, and swap war stories about vendors who ghost them mid-integration. User handle, no pizza for Lisa message. Word is company name is down not because of bugs, because they fired their architect and forgot she owned the code. Cease and desist hit Tuesday. Legal's scrambling. It's not maintenance, it's karma. At first, it read like tech gossip, some spicy revenge fantasy urban legend. But then came the receipts, a few screenshots, the license clause from the contract, a redacted PDF header with the Phoenix Layer LLC logo. Even the first page of the cease and desist order, minus company names, anyone who'd touched an enterprise platform in the past decade could fill in the blanks. And then it spread like spilled coffee on a server rack. Tech Twitter caught it next. Someone posted, fired your only real engineer? Cute. Now your clients can't even log in. It racked up 70K likes by noon. I watched it all unfold from my home office, sipping mint tea like I was watching the SAW Succession finale. One tab for Twitter, one for LinkedIn, one for Hacker News, which by midday had a top thread titled, When the Backend Walks Out Holding Pizza. I didn't post a single word, didn't like or retweet, just watched as the world did what it always does, connect dots faster than a crisis PR team can buy time. Inside the company, Tyler was unraveling. At 10:43 a.m., he sent an all-hands Slack message, do not engage with rumors or media. This is being handled internally. Our systems are secure and functioning. At 10:47, someone anonymously replied in the general channel with a screenshot of the admin console showing license validation failures across all production environments. That message got 112 emoji reactions, mostly the popcorn one. By lunch, two major clients had gone public. One issued a vague statement about temporary disruption due to a third-party licensing conflict. The other wasn't so polite. We were misled. This outage was avoidable. Our legal team is reviewing all contractual obligations. Support staff were crying in bathrooms. Sales reps were dodging calls. Engineers were rage-walking around the parking lot. Tyler tried to pin it all on IT, said it was a misconfiguration, something that slipped through legacy deployment paths. He even blamed Greg, the only guy still holding things together with duct tape and sheer spite. Greg had already resigned, left his badge on his keyboard with a note that said, "You can't fire integrity, but you sure can chase it out." And then the journalist showed up. Some tech blog editor named Carly who'd sniffed the story from the Slack leak and started reaching out to employees directly. Tyler tried to stonewall her. That lasted about 6 hours, because by dinner time, someone sent her the full cease and desist order. Unredacted. PDF metadata intact. Drafted by Rhodes and Calhoun, timestamped, watermarked, and damning. She published the article under the title, Pizza, Platform, and the Perils of Nepotism, How a Fired Engineer Took Her Code and the Company with Her. The comments were brutal. I had to turn my screen brightness down from all the schadenfreude glowing off it. The article ended with one line that made me laugh out loud. Sources confirm the engineer in question left calmly, with a slice of pepperoni, and apparently the keys to the kingdom. Internally, the damage was nuclear. People stopped trusting Slack messages. Managers were CCing legal on basic questions. Even the interns were backing up their personal docs like they expected the office to be boarded up by Monday. And Tyler stopped showing up on video during calls. Rumor was, his dad, the real CEO, had been pinged out of his island vacation and was en route. The company wasn't just glitching anymore, it was bleeding out. One whisper, one screenshot, one emoji at a time, and I didn't have to lift a finger. I already had, years ago. The jet landed at 3:12 a.m. Not that anyone at headquarters was counting, but Greg Madsen, the founder, the original CEO, and the man who once duct taped a cooling fan to a server rack during their first product launch, cut his 2-week island escape short and flew home on a red-eye with no Wi-Fi. His assistant said only one thing in the Slack channel titled Exec Ops: Greg is on site. Eat a 6:30 a.m. Prepare accordingly. By sunrise, the building looked like a crime scene that hadn't made peace with the body yet. Lights on in every conference room. Security badges pinging every 5 seconds. A half-eaten Jimmy John's tray sweating on the boardroom table like a confession. Tyler hadn't slept. He looked like a used car salesman caught mid-fraud, eyes bloodshot, tie askew, fingers trembling just enough to make his tablet unreadable. He'd tried everything: offshore contractors, emergency consultants, even called his old Stanford roommate who once took a JavaScript boot camp. Nothing worked, because this wasn't a tech issue. It was a Lisa issue. At exactly 7:04 a.m., Greg walked into the boardroom. No blazer, just jeans, faded company hoodie from 2014, and a face like someone who'd been betrayed by both blood and bandwidth. Nobody spoke. He stood at the head of the table, looked around, looked tired, then finally looked at his son. "Tyler," he said, his voice low. "Who exactly did you fire?" Tyler opened his mouth but made no sound, like his vocal cords were buffering. A younger board member, clearly regretting their vote last quarter, slid a piece of paper across the polished walnut table. A printout, black ink, 4 words, Lisa R., terminated without cause. Greg stared at it, and then everything changed. His face didn't twist, didn't explode, didn't flush red like Tyler's used to when someone questioned his charts. No, Greg just went pale. The color drained out like someone unplugged his soul. He didn't sit, didn't blink. Just held the paper in one hand and whispered, "Jesus Christ, Tyler." Tyler started stammering. She was redundant, outdated. "We've got newer architecture now and newer built on hers." Greg snapped, and she was blocking innovation. Greg finally looked at him, and that silence, it wasn't just the absence of words, it was legacy collapsing. "Do you even understand what she was?" Greg asked, eyes cold as the air conditioning. "She was an engineer," Tyler muttered, "a good one. But we've moved past she wasn't just an engineer." Greg stepped closer. "She was the reason this company didn't implode in 2015 when AWS throttled our instances. She was the reason our retention stayed above 90%. The reason Vance Capital even took our Series B. Lisa built this company from the inside out, and you fired her. Over a reorg, but the contract," Greg cut him off. "I signed that clause. I gave her that license because she could have gone anywhere and I needed her here. I never imagined the day someone would be stupid enough to test her." Across the room, legal said nothing. Marketing sat frozen. Finance was already tabulating the projected losses from canceled contracts and reputational hemorrhaging. Tyler tried again. "I didn't know she had that much control." "Exactly," Greg said, deadly quiet. "You didn't know because you never asked. You replaced experience with enthusiasm. Loyalty with analytics dashboards. 12 years of quiet genius, and you tossed it out for quarterly optics and an unpaid intern with a Tableau certification." A silence followed so thick it rang. Lisa's name sat there on the paper like a tombstone no one wanted to touch. Then Greg turned to the room. "Is she talking to anyone?" he asked. Legal shook their heads. "All comms are through her counsel." She declined direct contact. "What's her ask?" "She offered a full commercial license. $640K flat." Greg nodded slowly. "That's it?" "She also declined any employment offer, said the license is clean, fair, and final." Greg looked out the boardroom window for a long time. When he finally turned back, his voice was no longer angry. It was disappointed. "Then pay her. And someone call PR. We're gonna need a hell of a story for Forbes." He walked out of the room without another word. Tyler sank into his chair. No one looked at him. No one had to, because Lisa hadn't said a thing. And still, the building was crumbling in her silence. The email arrived at 9:12 a.m. Subject line: Consulting opportunity, urgent discussion requested attached. A soft font PDF with enough white space to park a truck in. Buried inside were phrases like "mutually beneficial," "eager to explore renewed collaboration," and my personal favorite, "a generous hourly rate reflecting your unique historical knowledge." They wanted me back as a consultant, not an apology, not a bonus, just a leash with a higher tip. The sender, some junior HR partner I'd never heard of, likely fed a script by Tyler's damage control committee. It reeked of desperation and Google Docs formatting. I read it twice. Poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. Replied with exactly 2 lines, "Thank you for the offer. I respectfully decline. Commercial license remains available for $640,000, non-negotiable." Attached, a clean one-pager. No fluff, no shade, just the deal. Their system, my architecture, reactivated under a perpetual license agreement, one they could renew annually if they wanted continuity. No strings, no comeback tour, just business. The silence that followed was delicious. At 10:40 a.m., I saw the read receipt. Someone opened the PDF on a Mac running OS 14.1. The metadata said Madsen Greg. I smiled. Then came the Slack screenshot sent anonymously from an old friend still inside. Tyler, we don't need to pay her. We've already spun up backup containers. DevOps, those containers still ping her auth node. You can clone the house, but the plumbing's still in her name. Legal, if we operate without resolving the license, we're in violation. She hasn't revoked access yet. Yet was doing a lot of work in that sentence. I waited 1 hour. Then, at exactly 11:45 a.m., I opened my terminal window, logged into the private admin panel of the legacy license node hosted under Phoenix Layer's secure instance. Typed 4 simple commands. The final one, sudo deactivate auth env equals prod reason equals license unpaid, pressed enter. The moment was quiet, almost reverent. Then came the cascade. Every active session logged out, every dashboard through a 503. Client-side apps spun into authentication loops. Support phones lit up like a Christmas rave. Internal dev tools blinked out one by one. Slack channels filled with messages like WTF just happened? And can anyone get into the portal? In the boardroom, Tyler was mid-sentence when someone's laptop chimed. Then another. Then another. One engineer stood up and whispered, "We're down." Greg didn't move. Tyler scrambled toward the wall-mounted monitor, fumbled open the admin console, and stared in horror. A blinking red banner across the top. License authentication failed, access revoked, a single note beneath it. Commercial license not accepted. Contact Phoenix Layer Systems for resolution. He spun to legal. This is extortion. Greg finally spoke. No, Tyler, this is consequence. Panic erupted. Half the board members started dialing phones, others yelling over each other. Someone actually knocked over a pitcher of water. Tyler kept repeating, "We can fix this. We'll patch around it. We don't need her." And Greg, standing at the end of the table, said quietly, "You already proved we do." Meanwhile, I shut my laptop and exhaled. No gloating, no champagne, just a quiet stretch and the sound of a machine I didn't have to babysit anymore. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. They took my dignity. I took the infrastructure. Tyler was halfway through a panicked Zoom call with PR, muttering phrases like narrative control and strategic communications angle, when the boardroom door flew open so hard it hit the drywall with a sound that stopped everyone in the hallway. Greg didn't walk out. He erupted. His voice hit like a thunderclap. "You fired who?" The whole floor froze. Tyler yanked off his headset like a busted parachute. "Dad, listen. I didn't know the clause, I thought. Do you even comprehend what you triggered?" The shout echoed down the glass hallway, past the interns pretending to work, past HR clutching their Starbucks cups like lifelines, past the finance director whispering, "Oh God, here it comes." Tyler tried again, flailing like a man drowning in his own justifications. She never said she had control over the licensing. No one flagged the clause. Legal should've. Greg stepped in, finger jabbing toward the closed boardroom. Legal flagged it. You ignored it. You signed the termination. You thought a pizza party was enough to erase 12 years of foundational code and loyalty. She built this company under your feet. Okay, but we can just pay the license now, right? Tyler said, desperately trying to smile like this was just a learning moment. Greg blinked, slow and deadly. "The board's already discussing your removal. But I don't care if you're my son," Greg snapped. "Right now, you're the reason every client contract is bleeding and our platform is a goddamn paperweight." The PR rep on Zoom was still watching, wide-eyed, completely forgotten. In the background, someone on the call whispered, "Did he just say fired Lisa R.?" Tyler just stood there, pale and unraveling, lips moving without sound like a fish dropped on hot asphalt. Meanwhile, quiet chime hit my phone. New notification. Wire transfer received $640,000 and 0 cents memo. Commercial license Phoenix Layer Systems signed, under duress, under fire, but signed nonetheless. I read it twice. Let it settle. Then turned back to my window, watching the breeze rattle the blinds. I didn't smile, not exactly. Just released the breath I'd been holding since that damn pizza box hit the table. Another ping, a group text from my old teammates. "Party pizza smiling queen of code. Best $640K they'll ever spend. Can't believe you actually did it, you legend." One sent a photo of Tyler's LinkedIn profile, now labeled open to work. Another replied with a pizza emoji and a fire gif. I sent one reply, slightly smiling face, then muted the thread, because this wasn't about vengeance. Not really. It was about showing the entire company, hell, the entire industry, what quiet competence looks like when you back it into a corner and hand it a match. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and opened the fridge. Inside, one lonely slice of pepperoni pizza in a Ziploc bag. I took it out, microwaved it for 45 seconds, and sat back down at my desk. I took a bite. It was cold in the middle, greasy, disrespectful, still tasted like justice. I took the pizza. But I kept the code. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.